Now, Jerry, you were about 15 when you were mayor of Cincinnati, from memory. It was a very long time ago. But you're a young
Yeah, it
man.
was.
Don't these jobs require a certain degree of mental agility? Certainly
Well,
running
sure.
a country like America, which you would think that every year after 80, you're probably losing your powers, right?
Well, first of all, if we had a mental acuity test uh, for people who are going to be president, we never would have had Trump. There are a whole bunch of other people that aren't older, you know. So that issue I put aside. Biden is an exceptional case. Now, we can discuss whether he's too old to be president, but the fact of the matter is, the only person that actually knows that for a fact is the person or persons who examined him. Everyone else just has an opinion. He's being tested whether or not he has those facilities. Now the question is, when I look at the evidence, this man in 2.5 years has accomplished more than any American president since Franklin Roosevelt, with the possible exception of Lyndon Johnson on domestic policies. Now, a lot of people don't like what he's done. But when you take a look at the things that he's accomplished, this is not a man with dementia. Lowering health care and drug costs, the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, he's done these wonderful things. Why are we questioning that?
Listen, I understand as a Democrat you think they're all wonderful. A lot of Republicans think he's done a series of terrible things. But there's no doubt the midterm election results, for example, were in some way a validation of Biden's presidency so far. It was a lot better than people thought might happen. My question really is, when you see him do that clip this week, where he talks about them taking off the top of his head to see if he has a brain, and mumbling and stumbling through that thing.
Trying to make a silly comment.
But he wasn't really joking. He
wasn't
even laughing when he said it. He just looked completely out of it.
No, he started a joke and halfway through it realized this thing is falling flat. Trust me, I've been there. So that's... here's
Jerry,
what I think.
Jerry, how old are you now, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 79.
Right, and you've never stopped working. I don't think you'll ever stop working, right?
Well, I might, but I think I still have my mental acuity. I think I may stop because there are other things I want to do. I want to spend more time with Richard, my grandson, and follow him in baseball and basketball and do things like that. So it's more that decision more than a medical decision. Here's what I believe is happening. Overwhelmingly, every poll shows that the vast majority of people who think Biden is too old are conservative and Republican. Now, there are Democrats who think he's too old, but when you ask them why they think he's too old, is they worry that if he's at the top of the ballot, other people will think he's too old, and the ballot and the whole ticket will go down the drain. That's a political worry. But if you're asking the question, is he competent to be president of the United States? There is absolutely no evidence on his record so far that he is not competent to lead this country.
I can see Gene wanting to get back in here. Gene?
Sorry.
Look, let's call it for what it is. I'm on both sides of the fence about all sorts of political issues, so you can't call me a rabid Democrat or conservative or liberal or any of that. You know, I'm everybody's worst enemy because I simply vote on the issues. But let's call it the way it is. The masses, I don't believe for a second, vote on political platform. They wouldn't be able to explain to you anything. It is invariably and intrinsically, and other big words like gymnasium, the cult of personality. When people saw Nixon with his 5 o'clock shadow before any of you were born, it was a TV debate between Kennedy and Nixon, and he had the 5 o'clock shadow. Nobody remembers what they stood for or who was a Democrat. They just didn't like that guy who looked like, Uncle Joe, who was drinking a little too much. He just didn't look so. So when people watch Mr. Trump, who we both know, they have their perception. And when people watch Mr. Biden, and we've all seen him on TV and stuff, unfortunately, sometimes turning around to shake hands with people who aren't there or mumbling words. That doesn't mean I agree or don't agree with the politics. People will judge this following political battle based on personality. I have not met regular people who've been able to explain to me what the different political platforms are. So I believe Mr. Biden is in deep trouble. I just want to say one last thing very quickly. If I was on the other side, Mr. Trump's side, and I may not be actually, I have lots of problems with him, somebody is going to put together a greatest hits of Mr. Biden falling off bicycles, falling on stairs, and not even talk about politics. Not even talk about politics. And that person will win.
I would think actually,
can you
Jerry,
imagine? But can you imagine the video on Trump?
Jerry, let me just say to you, I think the bigger problem, Jerry, for Democrats, I think, is not really Trump, who remains the bogeyman that may get out the Democrat vote, actually, as it happened last time. So that might be the worst scenario for the Republicans if Trump does win the nomination. But if it's someone like Governor Ron DeSantis, who's in his 40s, full of energy, full of dynamism, on a tough campaign trail, I would not want to be a Democrat trying to have Biden as my guy against a bloke half his age with that kind of energy. Just purely on the optics that Gene just mentioned.
Okay, let me just say this. I absolutely agree with you that there would be a political burden with Biden at the top of the ticket. I totally recognize that. But I'm on the show because the question was, is Biden too old to be president?
Yeah.
On that issue, he is not too old based on his performance.